So today marks 13 years since Benghazi's September 11, 2012. 4 Americans didn't make it home. Many more of us still carry it every day. This isn't politics. This isn't a spin. This is remembrance. And I'm here today to honor my brothers and to make sure no one forgets. Ambassador Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, and Glen Doherty. So Chris Stevens wasn't just an ambassador. He believed in building relationships in Libya. He stayed close to the people. He cared about understanding the culture, not just talking policy. You know, he wanted to be there. He wanted to be where the work was, where it was happening. But unfortunately, he paid the ultimate price for that dedication. Sean Smith, he was the communications officer for the consulate. You know, his job was to connect people, keep the system running, make sure we could talk when it mattered. He wasn't a frontline fighter, but he showed up in a war zone and carried that risk just the same. He had a family waiting back home, and he did his job until the end. You know, Tyrone Woods, a brother, a warrior, a Navy SEAL who had already given so much for our country. You know, that night he stood his ground. He fought wave after wave. He didn't back down. You know, he was the kind of man that you'd want next to you when everything fell apart. You know, he gave his life protecting others. Glen Doherty, another SEAL. I never had the pleasure of knowing him personally, but from what I've been told, he was a man who never quit. No matter how heavy it got, Bub wasn't even supposed to be there that night. He flew in to reinforce us, knowing the danger, knowing the odds. You know, he went where he was needed, and he never walked away from it. You know, people ask me, you know, what it's like. You know, the truth is, unless you're there, I don't think you can fully understand or comprehend. But, you know, it was chaos, it was fire, heat, gunfire, explosions, complete darkness. But in the middle of all that, there was clarity as well. You know, we knew what we had to do. Rescue the Americans at the U.S. consulate, protect the people at the annex, and keep each other alive and hold the ground as long as it would take. You know, we didn't think about politics. We didn't think about news headlines. We thought about the man on our left and to our right. That was it. We fought wave after wave. Hours literally felt like days, you know, but we kept moving. We kept returning fire, and we pushed back, you know, but we paid for it. With Chris Stevens at the consulate, Ron and Bub at the annex, every loss still burns. Every second is still sharp. You know, after that night, you know, we came home, but nobody knew we were there. Our wives knew, but that was it. You know, there weren't welcome home crowds. There weren't news cameras waiting. You know, we just came back carrying something that we couldn't even actually talk about. We couldn't even tell our wives. And it stays with you. It always will. But you have to move forward. You can't get stuck in it, because if you do, it's going to chew you up from the inside. It's going to destroy you. So you have to move on. You have to keep living. You have to keep living. You know, you carry it quietly, but it's always there, but you always got to move forward. People say never forget 9/11, and they shouldn't. But for us, there were 2 9/11s, one in New York and one in Benghazi. Both scarred this country, and, well, both scarred a lot of us. So 13 years later, Benghazi isn't just a story in a book. For those of us who were there, it's part of us. You know, you see it in our scars, you feel it in the silence, and you know it in the faces that aren't here anymore. But this isn't just about 4 names. It's about everyone who serves this country overseas. Our Marines, our soldiers, contractors, our diplomats, and intelligence officers. You know, it's about the risks that they take. Most Americans will never hear or see. It's about what happens when you're far from home under fire and there's nobody except a brother next to you. That's the legacy of Benghazi. Americans under fire who refused to quit, who refused to stand down, who held their line, held their ground, and gave everything. That's not politics, people. That's sacrifice, and it deserves to be remembered for what it is and what it was. So tonight, I ask every September 11th speak their names. Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, and Glen Doherty. So, you know, we honor you, we miss you, we carry you with us. 13 years later, we still remember. We always will. Rest now, brothers. We'll carry the fight.